Hello, lovely Notable New England listeners. Do you have 2 minutes to spare? I've put together a super quick, completely anonymous listener survey, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your feedback helps me to understand what you enjoy most, what you think could be improved, and how I can make the podcast even more worth tuning into. You'll find the survey link in the show notes. Thank you so much for taking a moment to share your voice. It truly means a lot. On today's episode of Notable New England, I sit down with Reverend Kate Layzer, the compassionate force behind the beloved Friday Café at First Church in Cambridge, Massachusetts. We talk about how this weekly gathering offers not just food and essential resources, but genuine community and human connection for people facing homelessness, food insecurity, and isolation. Reverend Layzer shares why spaces like the Friday Café matter so deeply, the misconceptions many of us hold about those seeking support, and simple, meaningful ways each of us can make a difference in our own communities. It's an eye-opening, heart-opening conversation, one that I hope stays with you as you gather with family and friends this Thanksgiving, and maybe inspires you to be part of the solution. Stay tuned. Hello, lovely listeners, and thank you for tuning into this edition of Notable New England. I'm your host, Gretchen B., a lifelong proud New Englander. If you're new here, welcome. I'm so glad you found your way to the show, and I hope that you'll stick around for many more episodes. In some super exciting news, this episode marks the 1-year anniversary of the podcast. Woohoo! Time sure flies. I'm so grateful to all of you who have tuned in, shared the podcast with people, and given me lots of encouragement during this first year. I thank all of my guests for appearing this past year, and I want to send a special thank you to my lovely Patreon supporters, Jess, Laura, Bonnie, Kathy, Ginger, Cynthia, Layla, and Angie. Thank you for your generosity in helping to sustain the podcast with your monthly contributions. I'm deeply appreciative to all of you, and I have a little something in the mail as a thank you, so make sure that you check your mailboxes. With Thanksgiving just around the corner, many of us are reflecting on what we're grateful for: a warm home, a good meal, the comfort of basic necessities. These are things so many of us are fortunate to have, and yet they are far from guaranteed for everyone. Across our communities, there are neighbors who are struggling to meet these basic needs. Today, I'm speaking with Reverend Kate Layzer, who leads the Friday Café at the First Church in Cambridge, which is a place where people experiencing homelessness, food insecurity, and isolation can find nourishment, resources, and most importantly, connection. I think you're going to find our conversation both eye-opening and deeply moving. My hope is that it inspires gratitude, compassion, and perhaps even a desire to lend a hand to those who need it most. But before we get to the conversation with Reverend Layzer, let's dive into some Wicked Light Bites, community-focused stories and happenings from across New England. How many of you loved the book Goodnight Moon growing up? Count me among the fans of this book. Well, you can have your own Goodnight Moon experience at one of Boston's fine hotels. The newly renovated Sheraton Hotel in Boston's Back Bay, in partnership with HarperCollins Books, has unveiled a Goodnight Moon suite, which recreates the book's iconic bedroom. Now through February 2026, you can book a stay and delight in the room with green walls, a tiger-striped carpet, cozy pink blanket, and the red balloon that appears on the cover. The suite accommodates 2 adults and 2 children with a queen bed in the great green room and then an additional king bed in the suite's main bedroom. A stay in the Goodnight Moon suite also comes with some additional perks, including 4 tickets to view Boston at the Prudential, so you can experience seeing the moon high above Boston before you tuck in for the night. They also will give you a Goodnight Moon plushie, a copy of the book, cookies, and a goodnight mush served in a keepsake bowl that you can take home. You are also given a $150 credit for use for food and beverages at Henderson and More or a la carte. This experience is available for a limited time and in limited quantity. So if you're interested, call 1-800-228 9290. Again, that's 1-800-228-9290 to ask for a promotional code to use when booking your reservation online. Information for this item comes from the Marriott Sheraton Boston Hotel website. To get a taste of 3 centuries of Thanksgiving celebrations, visit the Strawberry Bank Museum in Portsmouth, New Hampshire for their Harvest Celebrations, a History of Thanksgiving guided tours. This 90-minute tour with expert guides will take you through 4 historic houses to learn how this holiday has evolved. You can see how people celebrated Thanksgiving in 1777 at the William Pitt Tavern, experience the height of the Victorian period in 1870 at the Goodwin Mansion. You can share in the experience of a Jewish immigrant family learning about the American holiday in 1919 at the Shapiro House and learn about Thanksgiving on the home front in 1943 at the Abbott House and Store. The tours cost $20 for members, $25 for non-members. There is one more weekend left, November 28th through November 30th, with tours at 10 a.m., 11 a.m., 11:30 a.m., 12 p.m., 1 p.m., 1:30 p.m., and 2 p.m. For more information, visit strawberrybank.org. Don't worry, I have listed that in the show notes. Information for this item comes from the Strawberry Bank Museum's website. Maine has launched the Maine Food Access Map, an interactive map to help Mainers find access to food assistance near them. The Maine Department of Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry unveiled the map, which was designed to help Mainers find food pantries, meal sites, school-based programs, WIC nutrition clinics, and other food assistance. The state will update the map in partnership with local programs and community organizations. DACF Commissioner Amanda Beal had this to say, quote, "We know that too many Maine people struggle to find nutritious food, and the new Maine Food Access Map is designed to meet this real and growing need. By consolidating the state's hunger relief sources into one intuitive platform, we can help individuals and families connect more quickly," end quote. I will put a link to the interactive map in the show notes for your convenience. Information for this item comes from Jillian Graham at the Portland Press Herald. It's the end of an era for one of Barrie, Vermont's oldest businesses. Beauvair's Shoe Repair, a fifth-generation family business, is closing after 75 years. It's one of the few remaining shoe repair shops in the state, and they also sell leather coats and shoe accessories. The store has closed for good as of the airing of this episode. Megan Beauvair's, the current owner, says, quote, "I know retail is hard everywhere. You can't compete online. People have so many options. The Beauvair's family tried to sell the business and the building it's housed in, but nobody wanted to take over the business aspect. I just want to thank our customers. Thank you for your support over the years." End quote. Information for this item comes from Joe Carroll at WCAX 3. Enjoy some post-Thanksgiving fun at the Newport Illuminated Boat Parade on Friday, November 28th at 6 p.m. in Newport, Rhode Island. All along the Newport waterfront, you can marvel at holiday-decorated boats as they circumnavigate Newport Harbor. It's a beautiful sight for all of the family to enjoy. Information for this item comes from discovernewport.org. Do some good for kids in need by taking part in the toy drive to benefit Groton Human Services in Connecticut. New unwrapped toys for children and families in need will be collected at Valenti Chrysler Dodge Jeep showroom at 72 Jerry Brown Road in Mystic, Connecticut, Friday, November 28th through Saturday, November 29th. All donations will go directly to Groton Human Services for distribution. Information for this item comes from the Greater Mystic Chamber of Commerce website. Up after the break, I'll be joined by Reverend Kate Layzer from the Friday Café at the First Church in Cambridge, Massachusetts, to discuss how this weekly gathering offers not just food and essential resources, but genuine community, and how you can help your neighbors facing tough times and make a difference for the good. You're listening to Notable New England. Instead of hunting for yet another thing to wrap this holiday season, give a gift that carries real warmth. A Notable New England Patreon membership. It's a local, meaningful alternative to big box shopping, and you support the show, celebrate our region, and you give somebody you love stories that feel like home. You can gift a month, a few months, or even a year to a New Englander or person in your life who loves our special region of the country. Our Patreon memberships come with early ad-free listening and some very cool extras, including Notable New England merch and more, depending on the level you choose. You can visit patreon.com/notablenewengland/gift to explore the options and choose what works best for you. Gift memberships start as low as $2 a month. Talk about a bargain, right? Visit patreon.com/notablenewengland/gift. That's patreon.com/notablenewengland/gift. And thank you for your support. I am honored today to have Reverend Kate Layzer, Minister of Street Outreach at the First Church in Cambridge, join me on the podcast. She and her team run the Friday Café at the First Church in Cambridge, which is a weekly daytime drop-in program where homeless and housed adults can gather and get to know each other. The Friday Café serves an average of 100 guests a week, and due to recent SNAP cuts and other economic factors, that number is rising. The Friday Café offers food and coffee, rest and resources, and most importantly, community to people living on the margins. People experiencing a wide variety of life circumstances can relax, share a meal, and talk together as friends. Full disclosure, I am a volunteer cook for the Friday Cafe, and I absolutely love the mission and sense of community it fosters. Today, we're going to be discussing the Friday Cafe, more about its mission, food insecurity, and things people should know about it, how you can make a difference in your community, and how coming together, especially in difficult times, is how we stay strong and lift each other up. I hope my listeners will walk away with more understanding, compassion, and a willingness to pitch in, whether with the Friday Cafe or other community organization to help others navigating difficult times. Thank you for joining me today, Reverend Layzer.
It's so good to be with you. Thank you for having me.
Could you tell us a little bit about the Friday Cafe, how it was started, and how it's evolved to what it is today?
So I had, back in around 2012 or so, I had been tagging along at a program based at St. Paul's Cathedral in Boston and learning about homelessness for the very first time in my life, really, and getting to know the community there. And for myself, I found the boundary crossing aspect of this experience really powerful. Getting to know folks whose lives were so different from mine, learning from them, and developing affection and connection just felt to me very life changing, very powerful. And, I found myself wanting to share that experience with others. And so, fast forward a couple of years, and eventually, with a green light from my own home congregation, I decided to see if I could do something similar in Cambridge. So in November of 2014, we launched a pilot program in our church hall at First Church in Cambridge, Congregational on Garden Street. And the basic vision for me was to create a space of real welcome and community. And we didn't have much to go on. We started with coffee, with day old donuts, and with soup provided by a local restaurant. And, in those first weeks, I just walked around Harvard Square. I talked to people, I handed out flyers, and our numbers were really tiny at first and grew slowly and then faster. And bit by bit, the program just grew. We added more food by partnering with local organizations. We got ourselves more organized. We started offering donated clothing and hygiene items. And, word of mouth meant that we started to really grow. So fast forward to today, and we're a highly organized program serving an average, as you said, of about 100 guests a week. Each week, we enlist about 60 to 70 home cooks to prepare food in their own kitchens and drop it off at the church. That's a model that we learned from a really wonderful organization called Community Cooks, who's one of our key partners. And it enables us to serve a full meal from entrees to soup to dessert. Each week, we also gather about 40 in-person volunteers to set up, run the program, and clean up afterwards. So it's a big, intensive operation to provide this kind of really deep welcome to members of our community. And these days, there's just a lot going on at the Friday Cafe. We have a bustling resource room where folks can try to find clothing, sleeping bags, backpacks, toothpaste. We have a housing navigator provided by the city of Cambridge to work with folks one-on-one. We have a weekly art workshop provided by a local artist for free. A neighbor comes in once a month with her sewing machine to mend clothing for people. A church member offers 20-minute physical therapy sessions. Amazing. And once a year, the Cambridge Health Department comes and offers a pop-up flu and COVID vaccination clinic. And all of this really helps neighbors who are struggling to get by in an unforgiving economic climate. But for me, the social aspect of the program is, in a way, even more critical. We're building, strengthening, and deepening community because we believe it because we've experienced it ourselves, that community has restorative power in people's lives. It makes us all feel better, volunteers and guests alike. We are dismantling barriers and getting to know and care about each other over time. And I see this happening week by week. It has a real impact at a time when our society is so divided. As we like to say at the Friday Café, community is an act of resistance.
Amen to that. Unfortunately, more and more people are facing food insecurity in our country, and there seem to be a lot of misunderstandings and even misinterpretations about people who utilize programs such as SNAP, WIC, food pantries, and programs like the Friday Cafe, as well as other resources. What would be your message to the listeners about food insecurity and the challenges that many people face?
That's a really helpful question, and I think one of the insights that I've come to in my years of being close to people who are homeless and food insecure or just on the margins for whatever reason is all of the problems and struggles that I encounter in this community, in the community that I serve alongside, are also found in communities that don't need to ask for assistance. They're all these same problems are there. It's just that there's a critical economic difference between folks who need to ask for assistance or who are actually on the street. They just have fewer resources. Their ties to family have gotten severed, or maybe were never strong to begin with. They've had misfortunes in their life. It can be all kinds of things, from divorce to depression to anxiety or other mental health struggles. It can be job termination. It can, there are so many things that can derail us in life. It could just be that you grew up poor. And when you grow up poor, it's really hard to reach another level. And so what I find is that when we can meet our neighbors without judgment, shame, or blame, just meet them where they are and be friendly the way we'd be friendly to somebody that we were, say, meeting at a cocktail party or whatever. Just be your open, friendly self. Um, Immediately, some of your preconceptions can start to be dismantled.
I think it's important to note each of us is really one step away from experiencing difficult times like that. Like you say, with a divorce, perhaps they're elderly folks who are living on a fixed income. Maybe they've lost their spouse. There's so many different life circumstances that can really derail people and put them in that position quicker than you realize.
Yeah, yeah, that's absolutely right. It could be a major bereavement that just absolutely derails somebody.
I think it's really important for people to think hard about this and to really consider before they make judgments about people. You don't really know what somebody's going through, and what you can do is just show up and be a kind person and be a friendly face and just don't offer judgment, because as we just said, you could be one step away from being in a circumstance like that.
I think that's a really good point. And one thing that folks that I know that who have experienced homelessness, one of the things they say is the moment you cross that line, the moment you become unhoused, and your plight is kind of visible to other people, to strangers, it's right away. It's like you've crossed some invisible line where you're actually not human anymore. They see you in an other light, and it even shows up in brain scans that when you show somebody a picture of a homeless person, quote unquote, it activates the same part of their brain that an inanimate object would. It's
Wow.
terrifying but true. And so I think for me, the first step is just to absolutely begin dismantling that response in ourselves and to see these folks as every bit our neighbors, as if they were living next door to us, which in a way they are.
Absolutely. They are our neighbors. These are folks who are going through a difficult time. And, unfortunately, man, that is really sobering what you said about that study, because I feel like there are a lot of people that feel this level of discomfort and, maybe think of themselves as like, well, I would never be in that position. And as we've said, you're one step away from that. Just showing somebody compassion, look them in the eye, say hello, treat them like a human being because they are a human being. I think that goes such a long way, but we have as a society this discomfort with being around homelessness and people who are going through tough times that I think people just kind of shut down and they think, they're just so far removed from it.
Yeah, it's too scary for people, I think. But I really appreciate what you're saying, and one of the things I feel proudest about the way that the Friday Cafe is set up is that volunteers come in and they may be encountering unhoused folks for the very first time. Um, but pretty soon, if they keep coming back and volunteering more than once, they'll be walking through Harvard Square or walking, and they'll see somebody and they'll be like, "Oh, hi, John." Like they actually know this person's name, and they feel a sense of connection. I have one guest who often is working at the coffee station, and somebody will yell across the street, "Hey, Mr. Coffee!" Like they know each other now, and that critical divide has been a little bit bridged. It's not going to go away completely, but what we are trying to build bridges across these barriers that are so harmful to all of us.
Absolutely. As the need for programs like the Friday Cafe rise, how can community members best support them and contribute in some way that is meaningful?
So at the local level, I always encourage people just to find out what the programs are and what their needs are. So interact directly with the program. I field a lot of inquiries myself. Find out what their need for volunteers is, or what their need for material aid or food supplies or whatever. Sometimes people will want to drop donations off at our church, but they haven't really kind of checked first to make sure that it's a good fit for us. And so I would say always think first, what does the program need? Not what I want to give or what I want to do, but what does the program need? And I say that because programs are working, people in the programs are working so hard and are under a lot of pressure. And then if somebody tries to offer something which isn't a good fit, then that becomes another problem, another thing you have to deal with. So it's really an act of kindness to think about what it is that the program actually needs. But I would say for me, beyond my program, and it's really easy to volunteer or contribute to the Friday Cafe, and you can go to our website to check that out. It's our shortcut URL is www.thefriday.cafe. You can learn all about how to take part or contribute. But as a general rule, I tend to look to the food banks and the food pantries. And I say that because they've taken huge hits from federal cuts to food aid. They've just had devastating losses in the past few months during the Trump 2.0. And so anything that people can do to support them, again, letting them take the lead in terms of saying what it is that they need. A financial gift is never out of place. So I just think so many Americans depend on their weekly trip to the food pantry. And these are not handouts. These are just neighbors making sure that neighbors are okay.
Absolutely. That's a great point, too. Make sure you check with these places to see what their needs are, not just, well, I have this and I'm just going to give it away.
Right. I'm moving. I'm trying to get rid of my stuff. I'll just drop it off at the church. That happens a lot. Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness, I can only imagine. In some exciting news on Tuesday, December 2nd, the annual benefit for the Friday Cafe is going to be held at the Burren in Somerville, Massachusetts. I have been to this many times and I did score my ticket already. I know tickets go very fast and sell out, and this benefit features local performers, sing-alongs, and a coming together of community to support a great cause. Could you tell us more about the event?
Thank you so much. That's really kind. And this is a beautiful story for me because this relationship, this variety show, which is an annual event, which happens at the Burren, was started by the late, beautiful Brian O'Donovan, the amazing Brian O'Donovan, who was such a leading light in the Celtic music movement, and along with his wife Lindsay. And we lost Brian a couple of years ago, and I'm sad about that every single day. But Lindsay is carrying on that tradition. And Lindsay has been cooking for the Friday Cafe every week for years. And so it's just been, she's a wonderful partner to us. The lineup this year is so cool. As always, the one and only, the incomparable David Coffin of Rebels fame and sea chanty fame and many other
He's the
venue. But
best.
he's such a live spirit. And but there's some really interesting ones. Sephardic Ladino singer Lily Henley. There's an opera singer, Heidi Nguyen, who apparently is quite amazing. Tufts has an a cappella group called Enchanted, and they'll be coming back.
They're
What
great as well.
they're amazing. And then one of my favorite things, Irish dancers from the Rebecca McGowan School, and they're going to come and on this little tiny stage, they're going to show off their Irish dancing skills. Fiddler Ellery Klein and others. It's just going to be, and friends. It's just going to be such a cool event. And so Tuesday, December 2nd, tickets are $35 in advance and $40 at the door. And it's a great spirit. It's like you say, it's just really people coming together to support. And I can't tell you how grateful I am to Lindsay, to Tommy and Louise, the owners of the Burren, and to the musicians who so generously give their time and talent to support their neighbors in this way.
Absolutely. And I know Tommy and Louise, the owners of the Burn, often do a set with their family.
They do. They do a set. So fun. What a wonderful tradition. It makes me wish I were Irish, that families can sit down and play together like that. It's so beautiful.
Absolutely. So, as I said, folks, this is such a hugely popular event. So, it is possible that by the time this episode airs, the benefit is sold out. So, Reverend Layzer, could you let us know how listeners can make a financial contribution to support the Friday Cafe if they're not able to attend the benefit?
Again, if you visit www.thefriday.cafe, it's just a part of the First Church website, but it's also, kind of its own ecosystem. And you can see a video that we recorded to kind of get a bit of a taste of the cafe. And of course, there's a donate button right there on our website. And that money goes directly into a special Friday Cafe fund. It doesn't go into the general church pot. This is a program where community and church come together, kind of like the water meeting the sea. It's like the delta, and we're just coming together with common values and warmth and love. There's no evangelizing at this program. It's just purely for a sense of community and shared values. So it's a special thing to be a part of, and we deeply appreciate your gifts. Most of our funding comes from the wider community, and then the church offers free space, utilities, staff support, and all of that stuff. But most of the everyday funding comes from the community.
It really does take a village. And I wanted to ask you if you had any final words to the listeners who might want to help their communities or perhaps start a similar program in their community.
I love that question about maybe even starting a program, because I do think that I started not as somebody with a social service background or a social worker background, or I'm trained as a theologian and a pastor, but and I'm also kind of a bit of a geek. I'm a social nerd, big time, and so I had a lot of anxiety about whether I would be likable. But the truth is, if you want to meet your neighbors face to face, you just start by being yourself, and by creating space within yourself to listen and look and learn and really receive the other on their own terms. And then you learn along the way. So you start off with maybe a big dream, but small goals. So our goal was to offer coffee and Dale donuts and some soup, and to create a space of welcome. That's what we were trying to do. And over time, we built capacity, and we gained experience, and we learned organization and all of that. But we started with this dream of offering welcome, in which housed and non-housed people could come together and just be together. I think, we live in a country of such abundance, especially food abundance. It's around us at all times. It is so hard to fathom how many people are struggling to get adequate nutrition on just a few dollars a day. The Friday after SNAP funds were cut, which at the time of recording was last Friday, our attendance jumped by 70%. We went up to 185 people. And I just want people to be aware, and many people probably already are aware, how the progress that we've made as a country in combating hunger is now currently under assault. And the gains, the extraordinary gains of the past decades in overcoming hunger in America are being dismantled for ideological reasons. And these cuts obviously hurt the most vulnerable people in our communities, but it's foolish to pretend that these are the only people who are affected by these policies, because when our neighbors are in trouble, the effects ripple out through our whole society, and ultimately we are all harmed. So my prayer and my hope is that we can start to move beyond political polarization to thinking and acting for the common good again. And so, whatever we do, it should be, for me, it should be with a sense of how do we love our communities? How do we support our communities? How do we care about the whole community? How do we see ourselves as a whole community where what affects one affects us all? So that's my plea. And programs every program will be different. Every program will be its own thing. I think that's wonderful. It will reflect the people who are involved in it. But that basic understanding that we're here for each other, I think is just so critical.
I thank you so much for being here today on the podcast. I really appreciate you taking the time to educate our listeners. And I hope that the listeners have come away having learned something, having more understanding, and feeling compelled to take part in community and help lift each other up. Thank you so much, Reverend Layzer, for joining me today.
It was a pleasure. Thank you. I love talking with you.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure having Reverend Kate Layzer on the podcast today. I'm so grateful to her for coming on to talk about the Friday Café with us, the importance of community, stepping up for each other, and I hope that it's given you some pause to think about ways that you can make a difference and help those in need. I want to wish you all a very happy Thanksgiving, and please take a moment to think about all you have to be thankful for. Do not take those things for granted. I'll be back with a new episode of Notable New England on Sunday, December 7th, and I hope you will join me. Thank you for tuning in, and take care, everyone.